Bujinkan to me is a humongous cult. They make their guys wear tabby boots, which is like some people confuse for socks. They're not. They wear like sometimes hakama, which are like the longer, more dressed looking pants.
Okay.
But most of it's nonsense. And then like the stuff that gets me about Hatsumi is like how diehard people are 100%.
All right, welcome back to another Gutter Fighting Secrets Tactical Podcast. Today's going to be Tactical Podcast number 24. We're here with Rob from Mcdojo-Life. Mcdojo-Life, for those of you who don't know or are not following, they do some really funny stuff on Instagram, and they're pushing out great content about BS martial arts, McDojos as they are known, putting out all the, the stuff about the no-touch martial arts, just the crap out there, the reality-based gouging of the eye stuff, all of that stuff. Rob, your account has been making me laugh like all the freaking time, man. So thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me, dude. I appreciate it. I love the martial arts. I like talking shop.
So what got you interested in starting Mcdojo-Life?
Well, I've been doing this now. April 12th marked 23 years. So okay. I'm officially 23 years in the business. I started when I was a kid. I love it. I love the martial arts. It's cliche to say, but it really has changed my life and altered the course of how I live my life. And it's done nothing but the best for me. But over the years, I've seen it do the opposite for people. And people join what they feel is reality self-defense, and then they get into a true situation where they need to use it, which hopefully most of us 9 times out of 10 won't. But that one time you really need it, you want it to be there and be reliable, at least to help you. And I've just seen people over the years just get wrecked because they had false information, or they've been regurgitating things that they've heard in movies or learned online, and that spreads as the gospel. And that's dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to empower somebody with knowledge that's false. And I think we call the martial arts community. I've heard it called that for years. And there's so much segregation in the martial arts that there is no regulating body to the martial arts. And so that means because it's not regulated, anybody can open up a gym. Anybody, literally anyone in the world can just say, hey, I'm now a 25th degree fuchsia belt in my own style. And I've been doing this for, 170 years. And they can just make up their resume. And if they're a good enough salesman, they can not only convince a few people to join, they can make entire associations. They can make thousands of people believe it. And so that's kind of sad to see. But with all that said, the moment I can actually pinpoint where it was, I substituted for a class. I taught a jiu-jitsu class as a sub for one day. My instructor was sick. He asked me to come in, hey, work with the guys a little bit, show them some basics. And I did, of course, because I love my job. And then when I got there, after the class was over, we all chit-chatted about martial arts stuff, and a new guy who was there asked us, hey, man, what's a McDojo? Because he was new. He had never heard the phrase, and we had been talking about it. And I explained to him what have now been developed into what I call my 5 rules for Mcdojo-Life. And he just kind of sparked that by asking, why has nobody done anything about this? And that stuck in my head for all night. The next day, I started Mcdojo-Life.
Now, you mentioned the 5 rules of Mcdojo-Life. For those of us who don't know about that, what are those?
Very easy. So, no touch knockouts, right? And that's like one very broad thing. A lot of things fall under that umbrella. But when I say no touch knockouts, it makes people laugh immediately. Like, oh, that's ridiculous. Of course that doesn't work. But unfortunately, a lot of people really believe that it does. But under that umbrella is also like the nonsense, like the pressure point knockouts, or like, the self-defense that's taught by somebody who's never learned self-defense or had to do self-defense a day in their life, that kind of stuff. Rule number 2, lying about your belt rank and fight record, which is everywhere. People lie about shit all the time. Rule number 3 is shady business practices, people who are financially taking advantage of their students. Rule number 4 is unsafe training practices. So people who are training like full contact boxing on concrete, like that's just dumb. That's a good way to get hurt. That's a good way to fall back, hit your head on the floor, concrete. It's just unsafe training practices are pretty standard across the board. Most schools want to keep their students safe, but some think by training more hardcore that they're helping their students when they're truly not. And then what did we cover so far? Oh, and then the last one is we covered shady business practices, unsafe training practices, lying about your belt rank. Oh, and the last one's pedophiles, which amazingly enough, people laugh when I say that as well. They're like, oh, of course. Not really, of course. We say of course, but if you look back between 1983 and 2018, not even current, there were over 400 cases in the United States of instructors who were convicted pedophiles who got caught molesting children. Damn. And we're not just talking like one or two. We're talking a lot of these cases molested multiple students at their schools before they got caught.
Damn.
So people laugh about it because they think that there's no way that could be a real problem or it's ignored. But the reason that it continues is because people pretend that it's not a problem. It is a huge problem in the martial arts.
Now, you also mentioned belt practices, guys talking about, I'm a black belt when there may be a blue or a purple belt, something like that. How common is that in the jiu-jitsu community?
I mean, in the martial arts community, it's very common. In jiu-jitsu, I've been finding more and more of this overseas than I have over here. It's really big in India. Like I posted a video up the other day explaining, like most of the videos that I do in which somebody has a long history of conning people, I usually do a breakdown video of that and I post it on our YouTube channel. So instead of just getting the ha-ha moment, you actually get all the backstory and information about that 1 minute clip. Like the one that I just did, this guy calls himself Grandmaster Dr. Major Deepak Rao. So he's got all of these titles, right? But then one of the certificates in which he has written was signed off by a guy who had been dead for over a year.
Wow.
Another certificate, I followed up. I contacted the instructor. The instructor wrote me a very detailed email stating, no, he is not a black belt under us. He says that he's a black belt under Hicks and Gracie when he's not. He's just a part of the Global Jiu-Jitsu Federation. He's not a black belt under him. He's just affiliated through the affiliation. Yet he claims to be a black belt under him. So, and the guy is talking about like half guard being basically just sitting up inside guard. It's like, that's not half guard. He's talking about back mount. He called back mount. Oh, I have it written down because I still have the notes from the video I did. He called the back mount a supine rear hold. I was like, dude, that's a back mount. Like, this is basic day one stuff. This is white belt material. This is stuff that you really would probably learn within 1 or 2 classes. He just 3 positions. And in those 3 positions, guard, half guard, which he completely wrecked, not even close to being right. One he called back mount. What did he call regular back? He called basically the first version of his back mount I can't read my own hand. A seated rear position. And then he called the last one a supine rear hold. And he crosses feet as well, which I'm not going to be too nitpicky when you're that far off. At least he got most of the position right. But, like the thing is like with people like that overseas, for some reason, like there's a lot of this God complex type instructors to where they're not only lying about that, but they can't just be a liar about being a black belt. They have to be a liar about being a doctor, and they have to be a liar about being like this famous actor, and they have to be a liar about 50 things. Over here in the United States, most of the time, most people over here kind of we get the vibe that we're going to be researched a little bit, just a little, right? And so it's not as common over here, but man, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts overseas. There was a black belt in South Africa who ran a Jiu-Jitsu academy for 30 years before he got caught as a liar and a fraud. Wow. 30 years. He had children who started with him who were 5 years old, who made it all the way to 35 before they realized they were being conned.
Wow. It's interesting that guys can do that overseas. It does seem to me like a lot of countries are kind of 10 years behind America in a lot of respects as far as martial arts. Like I noticed some Middle Eastern countries are still doing like Taekwondo and like that's the cool hand-to-hand combat to do. But, I think maybe it does take a little while for things to translate over to certain other countries. But it's just amazing to me that guys can lie, especially about something like a jiu-jitsu background where there's so much technique, so much finesse involved in teaching.
Or even just little details, like
Yeah.
devil's in the details with jiu-jitsu. I mean, it is with most martial arts, right? If you look at like karate, like when you look at a kata, with most people, when they first look at a kata, they just go, that's ridiculous. Like, what's the reasons? But, you know, if you were to shadow box, shadow boxing is nothing but a kata. It's the same shit. The exact same shit, as a matter of fact. The only difference is one is more set patterns and movements, and the other one's a little bit more freestyle. But it's the same shit. You're kicking and punching in the air. All right. And karate, you're going to do a kia, right? And boxing, you're just going to breathe. It's the same shit. It's just how you breathe. And so when I look at people who rip apart like traditional arts, right? My goal personally isn't to rip apart any martial art. I see value in most every art. Most. All right. Not all. There's definitely some out there that are complete horseshit all the way around. But most martial arts have a lot of value. And so what I see nowadays is a little bit more the opposite of what my goal is, but it's kind of always trying to rein things in, is a lot of MMA guys who have only done MMA, the sport of MMA. MMA is not a style. MMA is a sport. It is a sport comprised of a lot of different styles and techniques in which you bring together, hence the name, mixed martial arts. You bring in a lot of martial arts. But a lot of younger guys don't see the value in traditional martial arts, and I find it a shame. When you look at all of these UFC champions who have these solid backgrounds in traditional arts, hell, to me, wrestling is a traditional martial art. Wrestling's been around forever, right? I mean, if you look at boxing, boxing is a great martial art. It's been around forever. So all these people who shit on traditional martial arts, I think they're missing the point. The point here isn't to shit on traditional martial arts. The point is to analyze the individual instructors and find out if what they're teaching is viable or if they're lying out their teeth, which amazingly enough, I've been posting for what, 8 years now? Jesus Christ, I'm getting old. I've been posting for like 8 years, every day, at least once a day, and I have yet to run out of material. That goes to show you how many frauds and con men there are.
Now, you mentioned about it's the instructor that's teaching, his grasp on being able to fight and teach how to fight as well. What is your opinion about things like Krav Maga, where you're hitting the pads a lot, you're doing actual like legitimate movements, groin kicks, headbutts, but you're not getting the full contact aspect that you would get in Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, something like that?
It depends on the school. Like I've been to Krav Maga schools, like, you know, like with this job, it allows me to travel quite a bit. I do get to go to a lot of different schools. I have to kind of pick and choose what schools I go to very carefully because I run into the problem of now being the Mcdojo-Life guy. And so I can't just go and train anymore like I used to. Like people are either trying to assess me. People are trying to see if I'm trying to call them out and calling them a fraud. People are trying to see what I'm made out of. So like a normal class sometimes for me turns into like this like Shark Tank of me trying to defend my life. You know, it's like, what the fuck, dude? I thought we were just training. Like, you treat everybody like this? What a dick. But I've seen some Krav Maga schools that do spar, and I respect that. I think the biggest problem is how you label things. So if you do stunt work, for instance, you go to LA, you start to learn, like, let's go to Mike Chatteratabat school in LA. It's a stunt school. It's a Taekwondo school, but it's primarily for people to elevate themselves to do stunt work in Hollywood. It's labeled that way. So when you go, if you're like an MMA guy who's a douche and you just go, I want to fight you because I don't think that works, you're a fucking moron because that's not what they do. That'd be like going to your barber and being like, I see your barber style is not good. You must fight me for your honor. Like, dude, he's a barber, right? So I think labeling things is really important. If you go to a stunt school and it's labeled as such, expect that. Don't expect to learn how to be a badass killer because that's not what they do. There are tremendous athletes out of that as well. You got guys like Matt Emmett, people like Caitlin Deschelle, people like Taylor Lautner. All of these very famous stunt coordinators and stunt people and actors. Taylor Lautner did all the Twilight movies. All these very famous actors who are great martial artists, they just might not be fighters. There's nothing wrong with that. Just label it what it is. To me personally, not to shit on all Krav Maga, so if you're out there listening, don't get your panties in a twist, right? But what I've noticed is Krav Maga here in the United States has kind of become more of a glorified cardio self-defense. And so the classes that I took, it was all about, all right, here's a scenario. All right, we got 5 guys who have knives. There's 2 guys with a gun, and there's this 1 guy who's got focus mitts. All right, I want you to disarm these people. You're going to disarm those guys, and you're going to hit these focus mitts. That's an asinine situation. it's all about putting a lot of output out, right? Do this over and over and over again as quick as possible, instead of putting a lot of emphasis on, let's make sure this one technique is right. Let's do this one technique a billion times so we can't fuck it up. Rather than doing this one technique as fast as we can, let's worry about spending a little bit more time on making sure this technique is correct before we do all of those other things. And I think from what my kickboxing instructor back in the day taught me, the only one reason you should never lose a fight is cardio. It's one of the only things you can truly control is your cardiovascular system. Getting up, put in the work, put in the time, make sure you're doing as much as you can to get that heart rate up, right? That's all said and good, but you also have to have some technique with it. So like I said, from what I've seen, at least here in the United States, it's become a little bit more glorified cardio self-defense. And don't take my word for it. Go out there and find out for yourself. Go take some classes and figure out if that's right for you. And if it is, awesome. That's something you enjoy, cool. If not, then it's not for you.
How important do you think it is to pressure test your martial art, whether it be whatever it is?
It depends on what the context is. So like, for instance, back in the day, if you went to like a NASCA, a WACO, a NBL, any of these sport karate tournaments, the coolest thing that you would see was a flying sidekick. Like go back, look at all those movies like Sidekicks, for instance, back in like the 1990s with Chuck Norris. Coolest thing you would see is a backflip. Then if you go back and look at all these old school martial arts movies, the coolest thing you would see that did not involve wires was a backflip. Now martial arts is elevated to where you're seeing like these high flying kicks, like these jump spinning kicks, these 540s, these 720s, right? Hell, Raymond Daniels knocked out a dude with a 720 hook punch. Like he did that, like he did a flying sidekick spinning back kick and knocked the dude out in glory. You know, like these high flying kicks that we would call ill-effective, right? I mean, he's able to do them and test them, but that doesn't mean that we could do them and test them. I mean, fuck, if I give Anderson Silva something, he's probably going to pull it off where most people might not be able to. So pressure testing is all about learning what's working best for you. So if I go to a martial arts studio and my intent is to lose 30 pounds, why do I have to learn how to punch and kick somebody on the street? That's not my intent. My intent is to lose 30 pounds. So if that martial art actually does that for me, that's awesome. It is pressure tested. I lost the weight, right? So it's all about context, and it's all about making sure it's very clear because, again, there is no regulating body or standard across every martial art. You know, if you want to learn jiu-jitsu is almost 100% pressure testing. I mean, every day you go to a class, depending on the structure, you're going to learn the techniques, but then most likely either you'll situational spar or you'll drill, or eventually you'll spar though, right? So like you'll eventually get there and you'll have to figure out if it works. But let me give an arm bar to somebody who's got no arms and tell them, hey, I want you to perform this arm bar. Because he can't pressure test it, does that mean that it doesn't work? No, it just doesn't work for him. And so I think that context is very important in martial arts. It's something that's very important to me.
Now, what is your background, Rob, as far as martial arts go? When did you get started? How did you get started? And where are you at now?
All right. Well, I'll hopefully I won't be too long-winded. So I started when I was 12 years old. I got jumped by a group of kids in middle school. They beat me for 5 minutes. The only reason I know it was 5 minutes was because the bell rang for class to be over and they started beating on me. And the bell for the next class to be in had rung while they were still beating on me. So that's a long time to catch an ass whooping by several people. 2 teachers stood there and watched the entire thing and did nothing about it. They just watched. There was some kind of a rule in which teachers were not allowed to intervene with fights or something like that. I don't know all the details as to why. I just know they didn't. They stabbed me with pencils. They hit me with books. I mean, they fucked me up. No, I apologize for the language.
You're good.
But they really did a number on me. And while I was laying there, a friend of mine who was late to the class picked me up and he handed me a card as he took me to the nurse. Unbeknownst to me, that kid was training at a karate studio. He said, "You need this." Those were literally his exact words to me. I'll never forget them. And it was a card for karate. Now, my mom, who would, because I was born with a cleft palate, I have scars, and I had a lot of surgeries as a child. My mom was always afraid that I would get hurt if I did any sport. You know, if I asked her to do baseball, she was like, well, if the ball hits you in your face, like you'll have to go back through all these surgeries again. I asked to do pretty much every sport. After that day, I went home and I asked my mom for that. And the next month she gave me a month as a birthday present, and I've never stopped. I've been doing it for 23 years. I'm a third-degree black belt in karate. I'm a third-degree black belt in Judo, which is a weapon system not too many people have heard of. If you want to check the credentials on that, look up a gentleman named Master Lee Barden on YouTube. Also, I'm a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a 2-stripe purple belt. I am very mediocre at that. I am a 6-0 amateur boxer, 4-2 amateur kickboxer. I was on an international kickboxing team called Team Full Circle for 2 years, where we traveled internationally and did kickboxing and sport karate tournaments. I didn't keep track of any of those fights, like for the record's sake, because I mean there was a fuckload of them. Like it's a kickboxing tournament. I'm not going to keep tally on all that shit. And then I've been doing martial arts business consulting now for 10 years. I ran a martial arts studio for 4 years in which I taught karate, striking coach at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy that I train at currently, which I no longer work there because now I do Mcdojo-Life, which I've been doing for the last 8 years. And now this is my full-time career.
That's an impressive resume, Rob. I actually really love that success story that, your mom was afraid that you would, get hurt, and then you went on to become an actual fighter and actually fight and knock people out. That's a cool story, dude. How does it feel to be doing what you love?
I mean, I guess I've always chased the martial arts as a career. It's really been the only true career I could say I ever had. Now, I did have a few jobs here and there just to kind of make do. Like when I first wanted to open up my own karate school, I was teaching martial arts and I had a 9-to-5. So I would like do both. But this has been my only job I've ever really known. And it's I wouldn't give it up for the world. Like this means a lot. You have to think like the bricks that we're laying now are laid on top of the bricks that were laid before us. There are so many people for hundreds of years who have passed down what we do. And to them, it's, during their time and stuff like that, obviously times change, but it was important, and people chose to follow those people, but they were building something. And I think that we have a responsibility that if we're going to continue in our martial arts careers, that we have to respect the people who came before us, but we also have to understand that there are going to be people who come after you. And the people you teach today are going to be the people who are next in line to take over after you die. So what information are you passing to them? Are you passing utter complete bullshit nonsense to them in hopes that maybe when you die that they'll hang your picture on the wall? Or are you actually giving a shit about your student? Not just your student, by the way. Every student. The martial arts has this weird thing where we don't give a fuck about anybody else but people who are in our immediate line of sight. So like jiu-jitsu guys are always like, karate's bullshit. Right? And then Taekwondo is bullshit. Like fucking Aikido is bullshit. Right? You have to understand, those are students of martial arts that were all underneath that umbrella. So basically when you do that, you're just perpetuating the next people in line to be utter dicks, is basically what's happening. You're teaching your students to not give a fuck about anybody else but you. And here people have the nerve to hang a sign or to spray paint something that says, leave your ego at the door. Bitch, you are bringing ego in the door. And not only are you bringing it in the door, you're teaching ego, and then you're leaving and you're making sure that they follow through with their ego. It's horseshit. There is a huge difference between teaching martial arts and being a fighter. You want to find a fighter? Go to any prison in the United States. Just pick one. Go to any prison cell. There's going to be a fighter in there, and I guarantee you they probably are going to do okay, better than the average person on learning how to scrap. That doesn't make them a martial artist. It doesn't teach them any honor or respect or integrity. It just teaches them how to be a fucking glorified thug, right? What is our job? Is our job just to teach thugs how to fight, or is there something deeper here? Because believe it or not out there, all you 20-year-olds who are so excited to punch faces, you're going to get fucking old. And when you get old, your body will not work anymore. And you will find a time, even if you become a world-class best fighter in the world, in which you will no longer be able to fight. Then what did you leave? Did you leave the world just the fact that you punched a few faces? Or did you pass on something that was bigger than you? I think that's important.
Now, you bring up a really good point here about the MMA, even jiu-jitsu community, is the ego, man. And, when it comes to guys like actually learning how to fight, actually fighting each other, I think it just lends itself to giving you an ego. Like, oh, I'm a badass, I can fight. But at the same time, you see, other martial arts where they also instill in you that, very kind of Zen practice, the humbleness and that type of attitude as well. is there a fine line? I mean, do we need more of that kind of, I guess you could say, Zen or ethics in the mixed martial arts community?
Well, I mean, something that I tell, like anytime I teach kids, that's always where you start, by the way. Anybody who wants to get into the martial arts, if you're going to start teaching, chances are good your instructor is going to look at you one day and say, all right, we'll teach the kids class. Mostly because they're tired of doing it. But yeah, like when you start there, and something that I tell all the kids, and I make sure I say it loud enough for the parents to hear me, is it's my job to teach you how. It's your parents' job to teach you when. So I teach you how to choke people. They're supposed to teach you when to choke people. It's not my job to be the ethics police, right? Everybody's going to join the martial arts for a different reason. You know, like, so for, like, as we talked about before, some people join because they want to lose weight. Some people join because they want to have a community, like friends. Some people join because they need a mentor. People join for all these different reasons. Some people do join because they're complete assholes and they want to learn how to hurt people, right? It's up to the instructor's discretion to decide who's going to represent them. You know, like, for instance, anytime I get a death threat, the very first thing I do, and I don't give a fuck what anybody says about it because I don't care about them. But the first thing I do when I get a death threat is I find out who their instructor is. That's the first thing I always do. And I ask them a simple question. Is this person your student? And they usually respond yes, because it's rhetorical. And then after that, I ask, is this how you would like your studio to be represented? Then I send them screenshots of the death threats. 9 times out of 10, it's squashed. Like, they contact the guy and say, hey, dude, you need to chill that shit out. Like, you have our studio represented on your profile. That needs to stop. And it's usually squashed. I get an apology. We move on with life, right? So I think that it's up to the instructor to decide how they want to be represented. Not necessarily up to, like, us to teach our students, like, all of these ethics and things like that. That kind of comes with, like, it has to be given to you. Like, as an instructor, we put our instructors on pedestals, right? We're like, oh my God, like, so-and-so is so awesome. Like, have you ever met him? No. Then how the fuck do you know? You know, like, how do you know they're awesome? You never met this motherfucker. Just because he has his face on the wall, does that mean anything to you? Like, how did he get that? That's the important thing, right? And so as instructors, we have to earn that. But then after we earn it, students sometimes will just give you, like, the ability to tell them what to do. It's a very strange culty thing. And it's not necessarily that the student or the teachers are cult leaders. Sometimes students are looking for a cult. They're looking for a leader. They're looking for somebody to tell them how to act and who to be. Not everybody's like that, though. So I think that as an instructor, you have to recognize, is this a good representation of what I want my studio to be like? Like, if this guy comes in, he's a complete thug asshole, it's up to you whether or not he stays. That is your choice. So just understand that every time he goes out, he acts a fool, he gets drunk, he gets arrested, he does crazy shit. He's representing you. You don't get a choice there. But as the student has to realize, okay, am I giving the instructor the authority over me in which they can tell me the ethics in which I need to follow? Because just kind of like going to school as a teenager and you hear a teacher say some shit and they're like, hey, man, you're going to find out when you're older, you can listen to me or not. That old speech, right? And as a kid, you go, fuck you. But with a teacher you respect, you listen to them. You go, oh, I respect this person. So I think there's a fine line between student and instructor relationship in which students need to be aware that the instructor is probably trying to teach them more than just punching and kicking. Or if they're not, they're not. But the student needs to realize where they stand with that. And then the instructor needs to realize the power that they truly have. The buck stops there. The buck stops with the instructor. And so if that's the type of person that you would like to develop, be honest about it. Just be open. Be like, hey, I don't give a shit if you're a thug. I don't fucking care. But if you're going, you can't just run the fine line, right? You can't be like, honor, respect, integrity, and then go, oh, you went out and beat up prostitutes and ran over a busload of nuns? Can't wait to see you back in class on Monday. You know, like, you got to make a decision as an instructor.
So, you know, we see schools that all over the country, especially now and going forward, are really going to be hurting for business. And they don't want to turn a student away, even if they know this guy is maybe a thug or whatever, or he's just an asshole. You know, they might not, at least right away, say, hey, listen, you're not welcome here. What is your opinion on this? Is there kind of, should instructors be a little bit more diligent about the people that they actually let come and train?
That's up to the instructor. Yeah. I can say one thing, though. if schools, because what, the COVID virus thing has been going on for about a month now, roughly, solid month. If you weren't prepared for this, you weren't prepared for summer. Just letting you know. Like, I've been doing martial arts consulting for about 10 years now. And one thing I can tell you has never changed in the United States is your student retention is going to drop off during summertime for 3 months. Why? Because school is out. Kids are out of school for roughly 3 months. So what happens to your studio? Well, people want to take their kids out on vacation. People save vacation time for the summertime. Do they want to pay you, or do they want to pay for the cruise? 9 times out of 10, they'd rather pay for the cruise. So what you see is like January, February, a steady uptick of students. And then it keeps doing that. You know, if you're a good studio, it'll continue through the summertime. Once summer's right around the corner, it's going to plateau. And then as soon as summer hits, it's going to fucking nosedive towards the ground, right? It's because same thing happens during Christmas time. Usually November, December are also months in which you see retention rates drop off because of Christmas. People are going to save that extra $150, $200 or whatever it is that you charge, and they're going to buy presents for their kids. They don't care about you, right? They care about their family, all of that. So all of the extras go away. And for a lot of people, martial arts is extra. If you weren't prepared to take a hurt for a month, if you weren't prepared for this, you were never going to survive summer. Just letting you know. Summer was going to rip your business apart. December was going to be even worse for you. Right? So all of these things should have kind of been in place already, right? So like, for instance, all these people now are jumping on this like social media classes, right? Why weren't you doing this shit before? Why wasn't that already a thing? Why did you not already have good social media presence? Why is it now an important thing? It's too late if you're already fucking with it now. You should have already had that as a part of your program. How come you aren't offering specials and deals for your particular clients that are there now? Like, here's an easy one. If you have students right now who are on contract and you start seeing them dip off, that's your fault. That's not their fault. We can never blame the customer. That's always a good way to go out of business. We always blame ourselves. How do I fix this mistake? What did I do wrong? Right? So an easy way to fix that problem is, why don't you offer your students, hey, if you stick with us during these times while we're on quarantine, I'll let you pay either half off now during this quarantine time. It'll be completely half off. And when you get back, it'll go back to full price. Or if you're loyal now, I'll be loyal to you. You pay full price during this quarantine, which may last maybe a month or two. And then when you get back, it'll be half off for life. You know how many people would stick with you if you gave them half off for life?
Yeah.
Right? Wow. If they pay full price now, they'll save themselves thousands upon thousands of dollars if they plan on sticking with you for years. But how many studios are actually doing that? They weren't prepared. So that's not because one asshole exists. That's because they weren't prepared. So if you have to make that distinction between, oh my God, I'm hurting so bad, I have to keep this one asshole, you weren't prepared. Financially, you were not ready to handle running a martial arts studio. If you cannot handle this little hiccup, that's all there is to it. And I know some people are out there, this bullshit now. I don't care. I'm just telling you the truth. If you weren't prepared to take a hit, like anyone's going to do, anything can happen, right? I mean, fuck, you could, let's say as a martial arts instructor, most martial arts instructors that I know don't even have insurance. So what happens to you as an instructor if you break your leg during class or hurt something to which you can't even show up for a month? Were you prepared? Because this is no different. The only difference is they can't show up to your studio. They're still physically fit. You're still physically fit. They just can't show up to your facility. So again, if you have that problem in which you have to dissect, oh, well, I have to have this one person representing my studio who's an axe murderer, because if I don't, then financially I'll be ruined, then you fucked up a long time ago, you know? So that's my opinion.
Now, you bring up some freaking good points there, man. Where did you get the business sense as far as the running the dojos goes?
Well, I live in Florida. And so I've learned through the last 23 years of mostly watching people fuck stuff up, right? And then like all the instructors that I've ever worked for, like their whole like, man, I wish I would have done this, like really taking mental notes. Bill Clark, who runs ATA, which is a huge McDojo to a lot of people, is one of the founding guys who really has brought business to the forefront of martial arts. There are also MAIA, which is the Martial Arts Industry Association. Before that, there was NAMPA, NAMPA, which actually Keenan Cornelius's dad was a part of. So like, which people don't even think about Keenan Cornelius's father as being this fucking awesome instructor and business coach, but he really is. But you have all of these great martial artists who've been giving good martial arts advice over the years. And it seems like most martial artists' problem is the stigma. So like in martial arts, you have a stigma in which the instructor is either a really good instructor or bad at business, or you have somebody who's really good at business but bad at martial arts.
Yeah.
And then you have these guys who are in the middle, which is, I think, is where most people are. Most people, I think, want a successful business and they have all the intention to make their business successful. But again, the ego thing comes in and they look at the guy across the street and they say stupid things. I've heard everything over the years. Oh, those guys across the street, they're charging way too much. Who the fuck cares what they're charging? What does that have to do with your business, right? Maybe they're charging what they have to based on the square footage, based on their overhead, based on how they have to pay rent, based on their light bill, based on that. You have to base this on something. You can't just say they charge too much. How the fuck do you know? You don't work for them, right? Also, most martial artists base what they can afford as their price. That's a dumb thing to market on anything. It's not what you can afford. We're not doctors and lawyers, and we're people who punch faces for a living. Let's just be honest, right? But that service is an important service because when shit goes down, everyone's going to look to you for that answer, right? It's a what if. What if? But when that what if comes around, you're going to be the most important man in the room, right? Like, I'm just saying, that's how shit happens, right? And so when it comes to martial arts and when it comes to martial arts business, it's about getting rid of the stigma of what most people call a McDojo, because I think that's a skewed version. A McDojo is not like, if you just look at what people say, oh, they charge too much. Oh, that's a belt factory. Oh, this, oh, that. 9 times out of 10, when they refer to a McDojo, it's almost all money. Like, you're missing the forest for the trees if that's all you think a McDojo is. There are people out there raping children. There are people out there who are actually financially ripping people off for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've seen that shit too. There are people out there who are physically abusing their students. I mean, kicking the shit out of them, right? There are people out there who are just bold-faced lying to their students. Those are the real problems. Because somebody charges an extra $50 than you, that's not a problem. Because somebody has an extra 100 students that you don't, that's not a problem. That's something you need to look at and look inside yourself and go, oh, well, how do I get 100 students? What are they doing right? Instead of just name calling. That's so petty. It gets you nowhere. So I think the biggest problem right now and why martial arts studios are not nearly as successful as they should be is because the stigma in the martial arts is if you make money, you're a McDojo. That's bullshit. You started a business. A business makes money. If not, you're a charity. Make a decision. If you want to teach martial arts for free, do it for free. If you want to teach martial arts for profit, learn how to do that successfully and learn how to do that in which you don't have to give up your integrity. There's a big difference between on the mat and off the mat. Off the mat is where most people fuck everything up with their studio. On the mat, I've seen great instructors. I mean, they'll teach you how to do something and you'd be like, dude, I just had the best epiphany. You taught me so much in that 1 hour class that I just did. I feel like I'm a better person because of it. Not just martial artist, but like really a better person. You taught me everything I truly feel like I was missing. And then you walk off the mat and it's dirty as fuck. It smells. Nobody's answering the phones. Nobody's, like, when new people come in, new people are just leaving even though they're scheduled because no one even said hey, right? The equipment is from like 1912 and there's like an old prospector living in there with a dead canary in a cage, right? Like, what's wrong with you? Right? You can do all these great things here, but your ego thinks that making money out here is bad. No one shows up to the party with the guy with $20. You show up to the guy's party who has the fucking mansion, who's riding jet skis in his pool that's located in his living room, right? If you have the option, I can tell you which one you're going to go to. You know? Are you going to go to Dan Bilzerian's party? Or are you going to go to the hobos party? I think I'm going to pass on the cardboard box party in the alley. I think I'm going to go to the good one. And so people, like, on one hand will think, oh, money is such a great thing. And on the other, they'll be like, oh, but integrity. You don't have to give up one for the other. That's like a big thing people need to get past, you know?
Now, you bring up a bunch of good topics here, and they all kind of mold into one as far as, let's just look at jiu-jitsu academies kind of specifically for a moment here, or MMA academies. Now, you've got the academies that are all gung-ho. We produce fighters. We roll like live. Doesn't matter. You come in your first class, we roll live. We're hardcore, right? And then you've got the so-called belt factories where you're going in there, you're testing for a blue belt after like 25 classes, whatever. I think everyone kind of knows what we're talking about here. And what, if I'm understanding correct, you're saying, look, they're both businesses. You know, it's just kind of on you to decide, do you want to be like a solid fighter, or do you want to like say, hey, I'm getting my blue belt. Like, how cool is this? Let me put it up on my Facebook. But is there actually kind of a problem, specifically MMA Jiu-Jitsu, with guys getting like a false sense of confidence or like getting their belts too early, something like that?
Well, that's all relative. You know, again, like everybody starts for a different reason. I think transparency is the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues we can work on. If I am a student, right, and I walk into a facility and the instructor tells me, hey, just so you know, this is how it all works here. Not all gyms work this way, but our gym works this way. Yeah. You can come in, you take your 25 classes, you test for your blue belt, and then after that, you take X amount of classes, you test like this. And then this is how we do things specifically here. They lay it all out. You'll pay for belt testings every month. It's going to take you 2 years to get your black belt. We'll just call it Taekwondo because that's the fucking truth, right? So, like most Taekwondo studios. So there are great ones out there, by the way. But the problem is that every studio runs different, so you can't even say that. But fuck it, I'll just make up my own style. We'll say this is Rob Doe, so I don't piss anybody off, which I don't care if I do, but I figure I'll be respectful to the art. So let's say it's Rob Doe, and I say, all right, when you come in, right, this is how everything works. You're going to have to pay me for this. You're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do this. At this specific time and date, you will receive your black belt. This is what the contract is. This is everything, and I lay that out to you. And you as an adult who has the opportunity to know what you want and what you need and what will help you get better, decide that that's what you want. You're a fucking adult making an adult decision. Let's say you're like, oh, I'm going to be hardcore. That's what I'm looking for. And when you go into the gym, they're 100% honest with you. They say, all right, here's how this works. When you come in here, we have a 50% drop-off rate within the first 6 months because of injury. All right. Also, when you come in here, that guy over there who's working on his fight, you're going to be a sparring partner tomorrow. All right. He's going to kick the shit out of you. I promise, right? It's not going to be any more hardcore than that. So most people fall in the middle. Most people don't want to get the fuck beat out of them 9 to 5 every day, which is why you see so many MMA gyms fail. They're like, we're hardcore. No, you're an asshole. Like, let's just be honest. If you're kicking the fuck out of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, that doesn't make you hardcore. That makes you a bad instructor. Your goal isn't to kick the shit out of people. Your goal is to make them have the ability to kick the shit out of people, right? Sometimes it gets rough, and sometimes it gets down and dirty, and sometimes you have shark tanks, and sometimes you have all that, right? Sometimes you do have injuries. But as an instructor, your goal is to teach your student, period. Give a fuck about them over your own ego. If your whole thing is we're a hardcore gym, your ego is so fucking big, it's so inflated, close your shit now. That's just the truth. Because you're going to get people fucking hurt. Because you're all about the image. You're not all about the people, right? How many gyms, by the way, actually show pictures of their classes on their websites nowadays, right? I respect that above somebody who put a supermodel on their class, right? Like, I respect the gyms who are open and honest. So I think it's up to the adult to make the adult decision, but I think it's up to the instructor to be as transparent as possible, so that way the people who come to you know what they're getting themselves into. An old business tactic, by the way, it still works today, is, which I tell people not to do, but it does work, is when somebody walks into your gym and they ask for an art that's not yours. So somebody walks into a jiu-jitsu academy and they say, hey man, I just happen to be walking by. I used to take karate years ago. I loved it. Do you guys teach karate here? It's obvious that that person is looking for something very specific. Now, the business tactic is to say, what is it about karate that you like? And they go, oh, well, I did this, this, and this. And of course, you're going to tell them, oh, well, we do those same things here. Would you like to try a free class? Right? You don't give a fuck about them. Be honest. That guy specifically wanted a very specific thing, right? What you should say as an honest adult is go, hey, I understand that you like karate. I have a couple karate studios I could suggest to you that are in the area because we're all real cool, which we should be, because I'm not a dick and I don't call everybody who's not doing my art an asshole and doesn't know what they're talking about, right? I'm going to be honest with you and tell you these gyms exist. Now, on top of that, if you would like to try something new, something different, you're more than welcome to try a class here as well, right? You just let me know what works better for you. I can give you the names and addresses to those schools, or you can come take this class. Which one would you like me to do? And if they say, hey, I'll take those addresses, but I still want to try your class out. They made that decision. You didn't mind fuck them into joining, right? And so I think that that's something that maybe more schools can work on, is just being open and honest with your community, being open and honest with people who are prospect students, leads, being open and honest with just gym owners in general. Like, how many gyms out there now don't even allow cross training? Like, it's astronomical. They're like, from what I've seen, it's like, I'd say probably at least 50% of gyms don't allow you to go train in other places.
That old traditional route.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you can't do that, especially in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is so fucking uptight with that shit. Oh, you're creonch, you will go train, you go train over there with them. Why you no train here? Why you no work on your training here? Like, bitch, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about your ego. It's about me getting better, and I only have a small pool of fucking 25 students because you're shitty at business.
Yeah.
I would like to go train with another 120 and still pay you monthly. Like, why do you fucking care? The paycheck is still coming to you, you know?
That's funny. I mean, it seems like martial arts instructors and studio owners need to be a lot more diplomatic when it comes to other schools and studios. I mean, it would only be natural. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, but it doesn't seem to really work that way.
It's sad.
Is that because of ego?
I mean, it's probably a little bit more than that. I think that you said something earlier that is true. Like, the more traditional way of things, like the way that martial arts is presented in old school kung fu movies, the Chinese way, the Japanese way, like, there is a lot of like honor and integrity, but there's a ton of ego that comes with it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you think about it, like, even just look at like half the Shaw Brothers kung fu movies back in the day, right? Oh, you disrespect my family, I come at you with tiger style. And they're like, oh, I have ego style, and your ego style is no match for my tiger style. It's like, that's a whole bunch of bullshit. That's dick waving is what that is, right? But it's entertaining. But then people try to LARP and make that real life. Like, you see that in real life. You see like, oh, this school doesn't like this school. Like, almost like a gang mentality. Like, this isn't a gang. That's called a cult, right? And a gang is nothing more than a cult, because a cult does nothing more than serve the leader. That's all it does. That's like the fine line between what we do. If you're only serving yourself, if you're only serving your name, if you're only serving you're a cult leader, or you're in a cult. If you're serving other people, if you give a shit about your student, if some student walks up to you and they hit you with that, you go, hey, you know, you decide that you want to go train in another facility because you have a friend over there, y'all want to cross train. I would imagine, just in my opinion, people can take it however they want, that as an instructor, I would say, hey man, that's cool. Just so you know, me and that instructor don't get along, but don't let that bother you during class. That's between me and him. So just respectfully, just understand that they might say some stuff about me that you might not like. Don't worry about that. Go get as much training as you can. Have fun, enjoy it, and when you come back, teach me some shit that I didn't know already. You know, like, but instructors don't do that. They feel like if the person leaves and they go somewhere else, that maybe they'll leave their academy. Maybe they will. And if they do, they did that as an adult, making an adult decision that the service you were providing was not the service they were looking for.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Keep a good relationship with that person. Say, hey man, you know what? That's cool. I understand that. Now, financially, just letting you know, obviously you still have 3 months left on your contract. I'll tell you what, why don't you just finish out the month, and then I'll let you go ahead and get over there because you enjoy it more. They will respect you, and they will fucking remember your name because you're a good person. You know, like, just be honest with your student. Give a fuck about your student. They come first in this. When you die, they carry your name. Even if it's just 6 months of their life and they spent 10 years with the next academy, they might still preach your name from that 6 months. They go, you know what? I trained with this guy. He was fucking awesome. I just found that this matched what I wanted a little bit better. It was a little more suited. But I got to tell you, I would definitely suggest that place if you're on that side of town. You'll get so much more out of that than just being this like dick, to be honest, you know?
Be diplomatic, be a good person. That's solid advice. I mean, no matter what career you're going for here, no matter what business you want to start, I feel like that's such solid advice. Now, you bring up cults, and I want to touch on this. How much have you come across in your McDojo, research, where it really is like a cult, especially with like the no touch thing? it seems to me like these guys go in there, they get kind of like brainwashed and mind fucked, and then they start believing that this guy can like wave their hand and knock them out. Is that the case?
It's deeper than that. It's very complicated. So I guess the best way to kind of put it, have you seen Leah Remini's show about Scientology?
No.
It's fantastic, by the way. But I'm fascinated by cults. You might like it, you might not, but it's something that I enjoy. But it kind of goes to show you how deep things really get. So let's imagine, which I also read a book. We're going to be interviewing this guy for our documentary, which is probably a good place to start with your question. His name is Lewis Martin, and he wrote a book called The True Believers. And in his book, he talks about his situation, how he got involved with a martial arts cult, and then how he winds up becoming an instructor for a martial arts cult. It's a very fascinating book. I can't wait to talk to the guy and like really interview him, pick his brain. But the way that he presents it is just like any of us. So back in the day, he saw UFC 1, right? And he like binge watched like the first 5 on VHS and fell in love with like Royce Gracie and jiu-jitsu, which I think we all have like a Royce Gracie moment in our lives where we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. How come I don't know this already? Or what the hell did he just do? I'm so confused. I must learn this. But he decided that he wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. So he went around to the area that he had moved to for college, and he wanted to kind of reinvent himself. He was like, this is who I was before. This is a new start, fresh start for me. I would really like to get involved in martial arts and be a martial artist. So he set himself up to do some free trial classes in the area at different martial arts studios. The first one that he went into was not jiu-jitsu, but he was very impressed by their website. When he went, it was very much like he definitely got sold, to be honest. And he kind of fell for it. And not only fell for it, but he fell in love with it. So the instructor really did a good job of making him give a shit about the art, not just like the people and the atmosphere and the ego, but really care about learning the art. For years, he went there over and over and over and over again. He didn't want to be there. That wasn't his original set out. He originally set out to learn jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu specifically. But he got sidetracked because he found this art might be fascinating and he might learn something. The instructor was charismatic. The instructor told him a lot of stuff. But this was a guy who had nobody. He moved to that city by himself. And these were the first real people he had kind of gotten to know. And not only gotten to know, but gotten to know well. So now these were his friends. This was his family. This was his hobby. This was his release. It's more than just learning kicks and punches when you really start to think about it. This was his entire social structure now. So let's say down the road, after 5 years, I don't learn any no-touch knockout stuff. I only learn basic kicks, punches. And to what I believe as a new student, a fresh canvas, I've been painted with these techniques. And these are the things that I believe because the instructor has convinced me so, right? Which isn't honestly that hard. I could probably teach an hour of bullshit and people be like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then afterwards, they'd be like, that's bullshit. I just made it all up, right? Oh, you suck. Like, you got us. Like, yeah, but you were going with it, weren't you? But then, like, after years of that, then all of a sudden, the instructor pulls out, like, the trump card. I have your social atmosphere. I have your friends. I have your hobby. I have your fitness. I have all of that wrapped up into one right here, and I control it. And you're just a part of it. Now I'm going to teach you some shit that's going to make you question while you're here. You can either A, listen to what I have to say and go along with it, even if you don't believe it, or B, give up everything that you've surrounded yourself with, your friends, your new family, your social structure, your hobby, your fitness. You can give all that up and hit the bricks. Make a decision. That's not as easy and clean and cut and dry as we really want it to be. It's easy from the outside when we already have martial arts experience. When somebody's been brainwashed all the way up until that point, we don't know what that's like. So we have to have some empathy for these people. We can't blame the victim. I think that's an important thing, right? Some people fuck up. Some people make mistakes, right? But some people are truly taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I mean, really are. I'll give you another example. My sales percentages for martial arts studios are 75%. So that means 75% of the people who meet me, if I'm working for a martial arts studio, sign up for that studio. Why? Is that a luck? Is it a fluke? Or is it a trained technique in which I've worked and tried to perfect? This is not made up. This is something that's been proven. So like, for instance, why don't people sign up for a martial arts studio? I can tell you exactly why. I know the exact reasons why. I know even what they'll tell you, but why do people show up to a martial arts studio and not sign up? What will they tell you the reasons were?
I'm not sure. I don't run a martial arts studio, but I guess it could be probably financial, right?
One, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. It's too far away. I have to think about it. I have to talk to my spouse. Those are the 5 reasons somebody will tell you they don't want to sign up. Now, in martial arts, we don't cold call anybody. 9 times out of 10, people come to us. People want to learn, so they hit us up. They call us. They answer the flyer, right? They pick up the card. Most of the time, we don't cold call. Now, when they walk in the studio, I can get rid of those 5 objections just like that within a couple paragraphs. They walk in, I answer them, and I say hello because I scheduled them to be there. It's not a surprise, right? And if they just showed up, I scheduled them to be there. Somebody walks in, hey man, I've really been interested in classes. All right, cool. Well, we'll see. We have a schedule you for next Tuesday. How does that work? Oh, it doesn't work? How about the Tuesday after? And then if they're not scheduled, they're not serious, they won't show up any goddamn way. You know what I'm saying? So like if somebody just walks in your studio and like, hey, I want to just take class. You're rolling dice. You have no fucking idea who they are. You don't know anything about them. They don't know you. And one of the biggest sales tactics is know, like, trust. They have to know you to like you, and they have to like you to trust you, and they have to trust you to sign up and give you money. We don't give money to people we don't trust. And it's very hard to develop that relationship over a 5-minute, hey, hop in the class. It doesn't work that way. People are going to sign up. So they walk into the studio, hey, my name's Rob. I knew they were going to be there. I was waiting for them because I scheduled them. I knew they were going to be here at this time. As a matter of fact, I always tell people to show up 30 minutes before class so I get more time to spend with them. Now when they walk into the studio, I say, hey, man, are you coming from home or work? And they go, oh, man, I work right around the corner. Hey, man, I live right around the road. Guess what? They can no longer tell me. It's too far away. They can't tell me that shit anymore. What, are you going to fucking tell me that you live right there and then tell me it's too far away later? No, right? So then we continue our conversation. And I say something casual like, oh, well, what made you want to learn something like this? Oh, well, my doctor, he told me I have to lose like 30 pounds. I'm a little overweight. Oh, man. So has this been something you've been thinking about doing for a while? I've been thinking about doing it for about 5 years now. Guess what? You can no longer tell me. I got to think about it. Bitch, you just told me you have been thinking about for 5 years, right? So then we continue the conversation. So you want to lose 30 pounds. All right, that's cool. So I have to imagine you have the support of your spouse. They're cool with you being here and working on this. Yeah, they really support me in everything I do. They really want me to lose this weight. Guess what? They can no longer tell me. They can't say, oh, well, I have to talk to my spouse about it. You just told me they support you, right? And then, of course, we get to the last 2, which is I don't have the time and I don't have the money. When they walk in, I have them fill out a fitness assessment form. Right? Fitness assessment form is really easy. It has all the information that they need to know on there. It's really important for me to get to know them. That know, like, trust. Hey, all those questions that I just asked were already on the form. All right, now we have classes Monday through Saturday. These are the classes available. If you like today's class, which ones work out best for you? And then they say, oh, I can do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Awesome. Guess what? They can no longer tell me. I don't have the time. All of this is before classes even started. Right? Now, there's also something called pre-framing. Pre-framing is where I tell you you're going to have to pay money even though you already knew you had to pay me money. Right? So you already know martial arts classes aren't free. You know you're going to have to pay for them, right? So if I called you originally or you called us, I let you know, hey, these are the things you're going to need when you come into class, right? All the sweet talking, all the conversations done. Then we go right into, all right, cool. Well, I have you scheduled for Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Just so you know, here's a couple things that you're going to need to bring, okay? 1, make sure you bring a change of clothes because you're going to get really sweaty. You probably won't want to stay that way. I bring a change of clothes for after. I bring a bottle of water. No shoes or socks are allowed on the mat. Now, we do have a locker area in the back, so I would suggest you bring a lock. If you don't have a lock, don't sweat it. I have one you can borrow for the day. Also, we have a great first day special. If you come in, you decide this is something that you really enjoy, I can show you how to save a whole bunch of money by signing up on your first day. Cool? Cool. Then I call them back the day before. Hey, man, just as a reminder call, I just want to let you know, have you scheduled for tomorrow at 7:30. Are we still good for that time? Yes or no? If no, we reschedule. And we start the process again. If yes, all right, cool. Here's all the things you need to bring. No shoes on the mat. Oh, by the way, we have a great first day special. Make sure you bring your credit card just in case you decide you love the class. That way you can take advantage of our first day special. Boom. When we walk into the class, they walk in. Nobody else is there yet. I tell them, hey, man, after this is how this class is going to run. Class is an hour long. Make sure that, you just kind of follow the instructor. He'll tell you what to do. After that, I want you to come meet me back over here on the couch, and I'll answer any questions that you might have, and I'll tell you all about our first day special. That's the third time. After class is done, the instructor is going to tell them, hey, man, did you enjoy the class? Yes, no, chit chat. No matter what, how that conversation ends, they're going to go over and say, hey, will you do me a favor? Just go ahead and meet Rob back over on the couch. He'll tell you about our first day special. I've told them 4 times, reminded them 4 times that they were going to have to pay me money. So by the time we talk about money, I haven't lied to them. I've told them directly several times that they're going to have to pay me money. So by the time we actually have the conversation, it's not weird. Because some people are really weird about it, right? I've told them, like, this isn't going to be a surprise for them. And I told them to be prepared for this moment. So they can't tell me, oh, I didn't bring my card. Bitch, I reminded you 3 times and then another time. And then then they come in, and then you offer them a deal that's so much better on that day that it would cost them more money if they didn't do it that day. So all of this is really basic stuff. This is just like a tip of the iceberg on how to sell people on your program. But this is also stuff that most people don't have a clue about, because people forget that if somebody is trying to lose 30 pounds, it took them a really long time to get there. So they've been telling themselves for, like, let's say 3 years, right? Oh, I'll do gym tomorrow. I'll show up tomorrow. I'll go on the diet next week. You have to fight that. And as a good instructor, you can use this for good or evil. As a good instructor, I still do all of those things because I really give a fuck about them, and I don't want them to die because they ate themselves to death. Right? As a bad instructor, I don't care about any of that. I use the same tools. I take advantage of them, and now I have a minion for my cult. The only difference is your intent. Is your intent to better yourself, or is your intent to better your student? That's the only difference between a cult, to me, and a good studio.
That's a good point. Now, we see a lot of the cultish aspects in studios, and we think of it, like you were saying, like in a bad way. But you got to be realistic about it too, and say, hey, you know what? Cultish doesn't have to mean like bad necessarily. Like all kind of schools have that thing where it's like, I go to this school, I'm so proud of it, I love it, we're hardcore, or whatever it is, and that is kind of a cultish aspect of it. But you have to be careful not to let your instructor, or let anybody really for that matter, take advantage of you.
Yeah, it's all about the intent. Like if you go to any football game or college football game, right? Like those people are there are people who are half naked, painted themselves in the school colors, right? It's not a cult. That's pride. They're proud of where they are, right? There's not some omnipotent leader who's going to come down and say, all right, guys, it's time to drink the Kool-Aid. Because they know that students are going to cycle in and out as time goes on. They really want the best for the students 9 times out of 10, right? So intent is huge. That's why we don't call colleges cults, because the intent is for the betterment of the student. It's for the betterment of our campus, for the betterment of more than just the leader. When you look at a cult, it is all about the leader. It is all 100% about what is going to better the leader. And I think as an instructor, it's very important that every once in a while instructors take a step back and try to see what pedestal you've been put on by your students. If your students are talking to you like shit, you're not doing a good job as a leader. If your students are talking to you like you're a god, you're doing too good of a job, because they are a cult. They will do whatever you tell them to do, and that can be very scary. There's a great movie called The Art of Self-Defense. I don't know if you've seen it.
I actually haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, but it is a great movie to understand martial arts cult mentality. It's fantastic.
That's really cool that you're talking about this stuff, man, and bringing it out into the light of day, because there's so much of it that really, number one, these fraudulent instructors don't want people to know about it. Number two, it's just not discussed. It's kind of taboo. I think in the recent years, probably honestly with the help of, Mcdojo-Life and other guys like you out there, it's been brought into the light. And it's something that we really need to be talking about now, especially when it comes to like the pedos and all the guys out there that are ripping people off for lots of money. It's important that these guys get exposed, which is exactly what you're doing with Mcdojo-Life, the YouTube channel, the Instagram, which is amazing, and you've got the documentary coming out now as well. Can you give us a little bit about what this documentary is going to be like? And also a follow-up question to that. Can you give us about how you are able to kind of infiltrate these guys and get them without knowing you and all of that type of stuff?
Well, I'll start with the last question before the first one. So it's not actually that hard because they really believe it. So like, for instance, if you really believed your shit was good, right? In most martial arts studios, if I said, hey man, do you mind if I just film this particular technique, or afterwards you film a technique with me and show me? 9 times out of 10, most instructors would be cool. Yeah, of course, we'll work together, we'll do something, not a problem, right? These are no different. They really believe it. So I don't have to infiltrate anything. I haven't actually had to infiltrate any studios. Like, sometimes they're cool with filming and sometimes they're not, but it's me being honest and direct. I just tell them, hey man, I'm filming a documentary about different martial arts. Yours is one that I'm very curious about. I would love to film the class and I'd love to learn more. Do you mind sitting down for an interview, and do you mind if we film during class? They all say yes, because they don't think that they're con men. Like, we look at it, what is the best way to put it? We're looking at it from an outside looking in. They're looking at it from an inside looking out. From the inside, they feel like what they're teaching is legitimate. From the outside, we've already trained at different places or whatever we feel, right? And like we already talked about, there's so much ego in the martial arts that everybody thinks that they have the best martial art any damn way, right? Yeah. So there's no difference here. They really believe their stuff. And that's the most fascinating thing. I've heard everything on the comment sections, right? People like, oh, they must have just made this up so they could be on your page. Like, no, they did that without this, I promise you, because you don't see my direct messages. Some of these people are furious. I get death threats. I get all kinds of crazy shit, right? These people aren't happy they showed up on my page. I promise you that, right? But they believe what they're doing, and so they're offended when you call them out and say that it's not. But they've been so ingrained and indoctrinated to believe that this is real that they'll fight it to the death, almost like a religion. You know, you call somebody out on their religion, tell them they're full of shit, you will get into an argument, like quick, right? And it's the same thing to them. They have treated this almost like their religion. And so it wasn't that hard to get most of these guys to agree to film. And we're not going after particular arts in the documentary. So a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to do Aikido, oh, you're going to do Taekwondo. Like, no, like I don't want to go after the arts. I want to go after the underlying problem. The underlying problem isn't the art. I mean, fuck, we could do choreographed dance or synchronized swimming, right? Because those things aren't viable in self-defense. Are they not viable for art or other things? You know, martial arts is 2 words. It's martial, meaning of war, and then art, self-expression. Some people are more art than martial, and some people are more martial than art, right? You could be one or the other. You don't have to be both. Right? Once it gets a little too far to the right or too far to the left, either you're a huge asshole, right, with no integrity, or you're somebody who has no fucking clue what you're talking about in terms of self-defense, right? It's one or the other, right? But most of the time, you're kind of teetering, right? Like, I'd say Aikido is like 90-10, right? It's like 90% art, 10% wrist locks, you know? When I'd say like Taekwondo was like, I don't know, man, I'd probably say it's a little bit more like 60-40. You know, like you see a lot of Taekwondo techniques working and landing on people. You see guys like Stephen Thompson, Michael Venom Page, Stephen Thompson's karate, Raymond Daniels. You see these guys pulling off these high-level Taekwondo type kicks. I mean, you can't say that it's bullshit. You know, as you see things like that are universal, like a front kick.
Yeah, you know, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so, I mean, these people really do, like I said, believe their stuff. So it wasn't that hard to get them to film. But
now, even these guys that are doing the whole cha energy chi thing, like they really believe that works.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, hands down. I mean, I think the most fascinating realization that I had about frauds in the martial arts was when I was like 16 years old. And it was before Mcdojo-Life was even a thought. It was just a part of my natural experience in the arts. So there was a guy named Jack Hogan. And Jack Hogan ran before he passed away about 2 years ago, Hogan Karate International. Now, Hogan Karate International is literally an international karate organization. We're not talking just the United States. We're talking Italy. We're talking countries, other countries. So Jack Hogan was a friend of my instructor. My instructor was fairly no-nonsense kind of guy, but Jack Hogan was a fishing buddy. They didn't train together. My instructor knew that this guy was full of shit, but they just got along. It's kind of like having a friend who's an asshole, but you're like, he's my asshole. Right, you know? Yeah. We all have one, I think. So they were friends, and they hung out, and they fished and stuff like that. So I was cleaning the martial arts studio one day when I was in high school, and they both came into the studio, and my instructor introduced him to me, and Jack Hogan looked at me and he said, hey, man, I have this new technique I want to try out. And me being naive and a kid and looking up to my instructor, yeah, let him try it out. We walked down into the mat, and he cupped his hand kind of like this in the shape of a C, and he slapped me as hard as he could on the back of my neck. I mean, hard. Bam! And I was like, ow, dude, that hurts. Now, Jack Hogan, in case you've never seen who he is or don't look him up, he's about 5'6", 5'7". He's not a big man. He's maybe 130 pounds wet, like a little dude, right? But he slapped the shit out of the back of my neck. And he had the most puzzled look on his face. And I go, what the hell was that for? He goes, oh, it's a new technique to knock people out. You know, why didn't you tell me you were going to do that? And while I was like debating with him, he like had a thought like, oh, let me try it again. And he said, oh, I'll just try it again. And before I could get the words out, he slapped me in the back of the neck again. Wow! I was like, dude, cut that shit out. And the look on his face was something I'll never really forget. It was puzzled. He was literally concerned that his technique didn't work. Like he was curious as to why it didn't work and why it wasn't performing the way that he thought it would. And in my head, looking back now, I think that he probably tried this out on other students who were his students, who he had brainwashed into this, who probably just fell over. But me not being indoctrinated into the bullshit, I just reacted how I would normally react. You slap me in the neck. The shit hurt. Please stop. It's not going to knock me unconscious. You know? Now, ironically enough, years later, I post up a video of Jack Hogan performing a no-touch knockout on people, right? That happens to be the very first post that Joe Rogan actually shared with people on Instagram, and it kind of helped boost the page. And so, like, I look back, and I think that moment when I was a kid was, like, kind of my first real look into bullshit. And it wasn't because it was some long, drawn-out process. It's because the guy said what he was going to do. He did it, and it didn't work. And it wasn't that he was, like, it was that he was so shocked. He was just so shocked that it didn't work. He truly believed in his heart that this was going to work. And so when I look at people like this, like you look at it like a George Dillman, who's been talking bullshit nonsense for so many years, I think eventually it gets to you. I think that if you, like a mantra, say something over and over and over and over again, that eventually you start to believe it. You see it with like guys like Steven Seagal, where I think when he was younger, he probably was like a legit, like martial artist, like he really cared. And now it's so obvious between like all the sexual abuse allegations, all the physical assault allegations, him just speaking and how he talks himself so highly. You can tell it's just like there was nobody in his life who was not a yes man. And if there were, he either decided that they didn't belong there anymore, or they just left him because they weren't getting through to him. You know, like that ego is a motherfucker, dude. It's, you know, like you need people in your life to check that shit. You need people to tell you no. You need people to tell you like, hey man, I'm sorry to tell you, but that's bullshit. Those are people who are going to really uplift you. They're not there to knock you down. They're not there to hurt your feelings, but they're there just to kind of tell you the truth. And I think that that's something that a lot of these guys missed because they really believe it. And when you look at a guy like a George Dillman, a Frank Dukes, you look at a Sheeta Kim, the con men go on and on and on, but these are the famous ones. When you look at those guys, they all have that same way about them. The way they present themselves is larger than life. The way that they talk about their art is larger than life. The way they talk about their accolades and things they can do. It's almost like there was something missing there, and they're compensating by being the king of a very weird, fucked up kingdom. It's fascinating. And that's why we're doing the documentary. I want to dig into this. I want to talk to psychologists. I want to talk to doctors. I want to talk to cult leader experts. I want to talk to these people. We have a guy named James Heydrich. So James Heydrich was a very famous con man in the 1970s. He was even on the Amazing Randy show. And he had people convinced that he could like move objects with his mind. and that he was some kung fu master. He had like I don't know, a couple thousand people that followed him, like back in the 70s. Yeah, he ran a cult. And then later on down the road, he winds up being convicted of pedophilia. Go figure, another reoccurring theme. And he molested 5 kids. He gets out on parole and he runs. While he's running, he goes to the Sally Jesse Raphael and gets on their show. While on the run from the police, he does the show, and then he winds up getting busted immediately after because he's on Sally Jesse Raphael and he's wanted. And so they take him, and now he's in a mental institution, and it's only an hour away from our filming studio in Fresno. And so we're going to go interview him about how did he do it? Like, tell us some details. And he's already been on record to talk about it and to admit that he was a con man. So it'll be really fascinating to talk to somebody who not only is a martial arts con man, but such a high profile one. Will be a great conversation. Because like at one hand, you got to look at this guy and go, man, you're a piece of shit. You're a pedophile. You were a fraud. You conned people out of all this money. But you got to give him a little bit of credit because he was able to do it. How? I just want to know how. And if we can just get that out, that'll be a really good start to a fantastic documentary on how these people operate. And we hope the goal is that people who haven't done martial arts or people who are in martial arts now start to look a little deeper into what they're doing and who they're training with. So before they sign up, do more research, find out who these people are, look for the warning signs. If they're already signed up, take a step back, look at the surroundings and find out if you're in a cult or not, and then make better, more informed decisions. Because amazingly enough, I found out the other day, no documentary, like full-length documentary, has ever been done on the subject.
Now, how far along are you guys on the documentary so far?
COVID virus put us out of stop, dude. Yeah. All the gyms are on quarantine right now. So we were scheduled to start filming April 20th was our first scheduled film date. All the gyms are closed. So right now we're just waiting for them to be opened back up. And then the day I find out when their gyms are going to be open, I'll be on a fucking plane and I'll be right there so that way we can start. Because right now we crowdfunded the film and we have 2 investors. So basically it's like, let me just take a pile of money and stick it over in the corner and just so you can't spend that. And I go, well, that's right. So I have to be like an honest human being and just like, okay, well, the shit's just got to sit there. And so I wait and I wait. But whenever we're done, we're going right to filming.
So there's still time for guys and girls to get in on, either being an investor or putting some funding in with it. Because I honestly think that, and I'm not blowing smoke here, this is going to be a freaking amazing documentary.
I think so too. Like not to sound egotistical, but because it's never been done before, like it's going to be better than everything else has ever been done. Right. Like we win by default. Yeah, but like the stories already are just so fascinating. Like all these characters that I've run into. I mean, some are sad. Like I'll post one tomorrow, and it is a little sad, but at the same time, like I have to stick to my conviction that this guy is teaching other people, and so this guy really, I mean, honest to goodness, believes that he is a ninja, and I'm like, he's not LARPing, he's not in his mind pretending. He really thinks that he is a ninja from like Japan back in the old days. Like he's teaching people bullshit techniques and stuff like that. The problem is that he has people convinced to follow him. And so like,
are you talking about the guy with the blue hair?
No. So that's a really famous con man. That's Hatsumi Sensei. Yeah. So Hatsumi Sensei runs Bujinkan. So Bujinkan to me is a humongous cult. They make their guys wear tabby boots, which is like some people confuse for socks. They're not. They wear like sometimes hakama, which are like the longer, more dressed looking pants. Okay. But most of it's nonsense. And then like the stuff that gets me about Hatsumi is like how diehard people are 100%. Like most people from what I've seen who look at things kind of have 2 opinions about stuff, right? On one hand, you go, okay, well, these things are good, but these things aren't so good. And I'll just focus on the things that are good, right? On another hand, you have people who are like, that's 100% bullshit, who I never trust. I can never trust anybody who says something is 100% bullshit.
Right.
There's always a little glimpse of something good in there. Even like a George Dillon, right? You can hate everything about this man, but at the same time, you have to respect the fact that he's been able to con all these people. You have to give him that credit. Like he has. Like that's not something you could take away from him. He is that good of a con man.
He's got a leak in there somewhere, right?
Exactly. So like when I look at somebody like Hatsumi, I have to respect the fact that he's been able to get all these people to follow him. That's not an easy feat. But at the same time, the guy is trying to convince people that they can grab swords with their bare hands out of the air. He's convinced people that there's some type of extra sense that you have in order to get your 5th degree black belt, by the way. They have something called the Saki test, S-A-K-K-I. And so the Saki test, you sit in like a seiza position on your knees, where you're sitting on your knees, but you're also sitting on your feet. And then the instructor will have like a shinai, which is like a bamboo sword, and have it over the head. And then you're supposed to sense when he's going to crack you on top of the head with a stick and get out of the way. Now, from what I've seen and studied, I mean, I've seen tons and tons of this video, he chooses who he wants to have pass the test. Mm-hmm. So, like, the guys he doesn't like, he just cracks them on the head. And, I mean, it's loud. It's the funniest shit to me. I laugh every time, right? And the guy gets hit in the head, you fail next. Like, he just waves them on. The ones he wants to pass the test, he raises up really high, right? And you can feel, like, if you're ever sat on a mat and somebody walks next to you, you can feel it. So he raises really high and warns them, basically, and then he'll crack down. But if he's about to hit them and they're still moving out of the way, he'll slow it down just a bit so he purposely misses them. And so he picks and chooses. So it's basically a parlor trick in which he gets to decide, as a king of this fucked up kingdom, who will and who will not pass the test. And the guys who pass the test are diehard about it. Oh, no, I can feel it. I can sense it. Like, bitch, he let you pass. Let me have that stick. None of you motherfuckers are passing. I'm sorry to tell you, I'm hitting all y'all in the head, right? Every one of y'all. Like, and like, that's like the thing about the cult is like, they're so willing to follow this man that they will ignore all the red flags of bullshit. He has this bit where he'll take the sword, which is supposed to be a live blade, and he'll saw it across his face and show that he wasn't cut. Yeah, you weren't cut because that wasn't a live blade, homie. Again, let me give you a sword. Have at it. Let's see how it goes. Like, but in their mind, you're attacking the kingdom, and they're soldiers in that army, and so they can't let you attack the king. They have to fight it. And so, on the other hand, here is just me, basically being a huge dick, standing outside the castle walls with like thousands of those motherfuckers, and I go, "Hey guys, that's bullshit. Anybody else? No." You know, and so like that's what it feels like.
Sumi Sensei, like he claims to have lineage from like the Shinobi ninja back in Japan from hundreds of years ago. You think any of that's the truth?
Who knows? Like, all I know is what I've researched and the information that I have is that ninjutsu, the scrolls in which they talk about ninjutsu and the lineage and all that good crap, right? Ninjutsu was a job. Ninjutsu was not an art. Right? Ninjutsu, being a ninja was a job, kind of like being a mercenary, right? And they had the job of, you got to fucking go kill people, right? The way that we look at ninjas today, and they like have all these techniques, like basically half the shit that they talked about was just like stealth. Yeah. Like, you're like getting from point A to point B. There were no like kicks and punches that they taught. Right. Because they didn't fucking do that. Like, like if they did do kicks and punches, right, it wasn't like how we interpreted, like this is the ninja way of doing it. Like, no, it was just a punch or a kick, motherfucker, and you just made it a ninjutsu thing. I forget
that a lot of those guys actually like would just basically learn the art of their region or their family or whatever, and that would kind of be
It wasn't like handwritten, like technique 1, week 2, front kick. Like, it wasn't written that way. It was like, it was more like a how to understand the art of stealth and tactics more than anything else. That's just from what I've read up on. It doesn't seem like there ever was a written history of actual technique. But like, you got to imagine back then, there wasn't a written history of much of anything any goddamn way. There was like, you know, like it was just a very like hazy thing. And so like anytime I look at shit like that, like I think about the evolution of how things are too, and that's very important to me when it comes to martial arts now. In my opinion, I think we're in a martial arts renaissance. like, we're in a beautiful golden age of martial arts right now. And if you don't take a step back to truly appreciate what's happened from like 1970 to now, I mean, it's just fascinating. And like back in the 1970s, you know, we got like the Bruce Lee craze, right? Everybody, Bruce Lee was the man. But what he did was he didn't necessarily provide you with technique. He provided you with thought process. Hey, it's okay to learn more than one thing. It's okay to be a karate guy. It's okay to do jiu-jitsu. It's okay to learn it all. Why not? Do the thing that works for you and cut the fat. If it doesn't work for you, who fucking cares? Just don't do that thing then, right? It's like, that's a shitty movie. Then don't fucking watch. He was like that guy, right? And so then it kind of dies down. You know, like one thing that he definitely did do was nunchucks became illegal in like several states. Thanks, Bruce. Which they're now legal again, slowly but surely, because people are stupid and they all wanted nunchucks back in the day because Bruce Lee had them. And then like we hit like 1980s, right? And oh fuck, there's a resurgence again. We have the action movie star, right? Now, if I think about it, that's when you get like the Van Dams. That's when you get like the Chuck Norrises. That's when you get like who else? You get the fucking Lethal Weapon movies. You get all these guys. Like even in Lethal Weapon, they did jiu-jitsu. You know, like just tossing out there. Go back and watch the fight scene at the end. There's a triangle choke. Just pay attention, right? And so, like, all these guys, like, there's a resurgence of martial arts again, and being, like, this badass was, like, in the forefront of people's minds. I want to be like Arnold. I want to be like Stallone, Rocky, you know, like, all these guys, they're bringing martial arts back. Jackie Chan. Thank you, Jackie Chan. Jet Li. All these guys are bringing out the forefront of martial arts again, making people want to do the shit again. Then it dies down. Then the 90s hit, right? And we get, like, campy martial arts. We get like the Power Rangers. We get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We get, you know, shit like that. The Kamen Rider. We get all these like these campy type martial arts. But again, it made the kids want to learn martial arts. Then 93 fucking hits, right? And then we get something that didn't even really hit hard until like 2000 and something when Forrest Griffin fights Stephen Bonner, right? That moment. Right, we all want to say that it's the moment that Hoist Gracie did his thing. It wasn't, right? The moment written down in history that will show that martial arts started to have another renaissance was the moment that Forrest Griffin fights Stephen Bonner. Statistically, the UFC was made because of that fight. People were tuning in during that fight. People were learning about martial arts during that fight. And then all of a sudden, people go back and they learn, oh, man, this is UFC. Well, let's go back and watch the old ones. Then they learn about the history of UFC. They learn about the Gracies. They learn about all that shit. You can thank that badass fight of Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. Then we have the Renaissance, right? Now we have guys like Raymond Daniels pulling off jump spinning kicks. We have guys like Mike Chatteratabutt. We have guys like Matt Emig. We have guys like Daniel Sterling, like revolutionizing what we call tricking today. Right? Back in the day, the coolest thing you could fucking do was a backflip. People were awe-inspired, right? Now you got 720s, you got aerials, you got side swipes, you got all this shit, right? And so now karate and taekwondo is starting to have a revolution. And then jiu-jitsu starts to have Eddie Bravo start to revolutionize no-gi. And people looking at jiu-jitsu as more like, okay, well, how do we make jiu-jitsu more towards no-gi? I want to do MMA. So Eddie Bravo is revolutionizing that. Now you have EBI, you have combat jiu-jitsu, right? Now, if you look at all these different martial arts, the ones that are doing well are the ones who are evolving. Fuck, even karate, GSP, Lyoto Machida, Michael Venom Page, Stephen Thompson, right? All of these guys are basically saying, hey, you were making fun of karate. We're all winning with the shit, right? And now guys are starting to take a little wider stances. They're starting to be a little more bouncy like sport karate guys are, that kind of shit, right? But the arts that aren't evolving, the arts who are not paying attention to this revolution that's going on right now, this renaissance that's going on right now, they're going to fall to the wayside. The Aikidos, the fucking Kung Fu's, the Tai Chi's, all that stuff, it's going to fall to the wayside because they're trying to keep up with something, but at the same time, they're only keeping up with their mouths. They're not keeping up with action, and they're not keeping up with trying to revolutionize their art. Like Taekwondo is still evolving. There are guys out there doing some crazy spinning shit we might make fun of right now, but when that guy jumps up in the air and you don't know where the kick's coming from and he Raymond Daniels somebody's ass, game's over, son, right? You get guys like doing spinning hook kicks in MMA, right? People are like, one, that spinning shit would never work, and two, head kicks don't work on the street. Okay, go back, go watch, all right? Come back when you're done saying stupid shit now, right? And so, but look at like Kung Fu. Like, where's your evolution? You know, you have to evolve. You have to. So when I look at guys like the Bujinkan, right, and they're all like harping on their history, I don't fucking care. Like, let's just be honest. I don't care if Hatsumi Sensei came down from like this royal lineage. Don't fucking care. What have you done for us lately?
Yeah.
Right? Are you still teaching us to catch swords with your bare hands and that we can use our voodoo Jedi mind powers to get out of the way of getting hit in the head with a stick? Because that's bullshit, right? Evolve. Fucking evolve. Like, take all that old mysticism shit and go, okay, what still applies today? What can we do to improve this? Not like, hey, this is a 1,000-year-old secret technique. It's not 1,000 years ago. I'm telling you. Like, we're past that now, all right? What worked then might not work now, right? And that's just the truth.
And you have such a great point there. And even the ninjutsu said centuries ago, and I say this right on my YouTube channel, is that if you don't adapt with the changing times, that you will perish. So why the ninjutsu aren't taking their own advice on that, hey, I don't know, but I'm not Hatsumi Sensei or whatever. So,
yeah,
Hatsumi Sensei. So I want to just briefly circle back to this guy that you were talking about before Hatsumi, the guy who thinks he's an actual ninja. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Okay, so the guy who thinks he's an actual ninja is not Hatsumi. It's some random guy I came across. The guy that I came across I just came across him like 2 days ago. And so a guy sent me a video of his, and I always do my research before I do anything. How do you think I haven't been sued yet? You know, like, it's not slander and liable if I'm just telling people the fucking truth, you know? So, like, I researched the guy, and I asked, I was like, where'd you get the video? You know, what do you think about this guy? And he's like, yeah, this guy was my employee, and he said all of these things. He really believes that he's a ninja. These are the things that he said. He said he, like, was, like, in, I forget where it was, like, Arkansas or Indiana or something like that, and he said like he had a really rough time there and he moved to where he is now, and he was telling us all about his history and how he would go to Japan and train, and he was like, but the guy's off. He like told me like the guy's like just a little off, but him being a little off is no excuse for him having people who will follow him. Like, look at what's the guy who made everybody drink all the Kool-Aid? Why can't I remember all those names? Thank you so much. Jim Jones was off, right? He was off. Do we still not think that Jim Jones is a cult leader because he was a little off? Do we give him a pass? No, he doesn't get a fucking pass because he was a little off, right? Being a little off is everybody on the planet, all right? We're all a little off. Nobody is right in the head. We're all fucked up in our own way.
Especially martial artists, by the way.
A lot of martial artists. Yeah. I think that's why we start, right?
Yeah.
Somebody once told me that every martial artist started off as a nerd, and I believe it. But yeah, like if you look at the guy, like the thing that he taught, which I'll post tomorrow, was your hands are tied behind your back, and there's a gentleman who is holding a gun to you, and I want you to take this bow. Some people will be like, bow staff, it's just a bow or a staff. Fuck you, it's bow staff. I'll call it what I want. So the bow staff's on the ground, right? He says, kick it up into the air, and then I want you to run at them and headbutt them in the chest. And so when I'm looking at this, somehow magically you don't get shot.
Right.
So like in the situation like that, like I understand that, you know, there's a lot of factors involved, right? One, you're obviously already fucked because they bound your hands. They're bringing you out into the middle of the woods, which is where these people are training. And in this scenario, you're roughly about 4 or 5 feet away from them, and they're pointing a gun at you. All I know is if my intent was to kill you, I would have already killed you. If I'm keeping you alive, right, why are you still alive? There's a lot of factors there. Do I need information from you? Do I need a human shield? Do I need a hostage, right? There's so many reasons you could be alive. Once you eliminate the need for you to be alive, that's when you're opening the door to be killed. You're already alive for a reason. Or again, there's another situation. Do I need you to bring you from point A to point B? Yeah. So like if you're in your home and I don't want to kill you in your home, I might need to bring you to a second site in which I kill you. So like when you look at this whole scenario that's being played out before you, they've already brought you into the woods. So chances are good you're probably already dead anyway. Maybe just go for it. But like I'm just confused by like the tactic here. You know, like the whole thing is just so asinine. It's like it's just a scenario in which I just cannot foresee that being the answer, you know? Like, okay, so The guy who's got the gun who's 4 feet away from me, I kick something at him. Okay, he shoots me. I'm dead. All right, let's replay that scenario again. All right, the guy who's pointing the gun at me, I headbutt him with my chest. Oh, he shot me again. What do I do? Like, the only thing I could really see working there is maybe a form of verbal judo, or what a lot of good BJJ coaches I've heard say over the years, don't fucking go there anyway, right? Like, if you got here, you fucked up a long time ago. That's like kind of like that. If the guy's got his hooks in and your back mounted, you did a lot of shit bad before you got there.
Yeah.
If the guy's got you bound and in the woods in the middle of nowhere, you fucked up a long time ago. So let's address that scenario, not this contrived scenario, you know?
There's another guy, a ninja guy. I'm blanking on his name. He's a Korean guy, and he was big on YouTube a number of years ago, like Soul Ninja or something like that.
Yeah, the Chosen One.
Chosen One, that's the guy.
Ninja or something like that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. Dude, what do you think about this guy?
I haven't seen this shit in years.
Yeah. I was rewatching a couple of his videos, man, and it's amazing to me how, like, when you're fresh in the martial arts, you kind of buy into that stuff, and then the more you see, the more you do, you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, it's interesting how they can really kind of capture audiences who don't know much about knowing much, if you know what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah. YouTube is a fickle thing. Like, there's a guy, because I don't know his stuff nearly as much. I know that he had the bullshit gun video and stuff like that. That's another huge pet peeve of mine, by the way, is martial artists who are not actually trained in tactical shooting.
Yeah.
Try to teach tactical shooting. Like, this is a different art. Like, you're basically like a science professor trying to say that you know how to teach history. Like, they're different things. Like, you can't be an expert in everything. It's okay to, like, say, I don't know. And that's like a big thing. Like, with that particular gentleman, he was definitely ripped apart online. He had a whole bunch of videos. I don't remember what the moment was in which he got screwed over, but I know that he was able to build a really good following online before, like, eventually, like, the forums and stuff like that just ripped him apart. One guy that people still rip apart today is Master Wong. So Master Wong on YouTube has, I don't know, it's a couple million followers, right? The thing about Master Wong is I never, like, again, I really try to research the people before I go into them, especially somebody who's more high profile. You got to ask yourself a whole lot of questions before you can actually call someone a fraud or a con man. And so I actually had him on my show. I was like, hey man, I want to, like, why don't you come on the show? Let's just talk. And that interview was on our YouTube. And so I was like, let's talk. And we start talking. And the guy was like, not the character. Like, people forget that YouTube is an entertainment site. He's a character playing a character. And he wasn't the character. He was him. And so I was a little taken back when we first started talking. I asked him questions. I asked him everything. I asked him about his lineage. I asked him about a lot. We have a fantastic conversation. I walk away from it understanding more about the man instead of the art. And so I was like, okay, well, that's a good way to start. Then later on down the road, I wind up meeting him. I meet him at the Martial Arts Super Show, which is like a big convention for martial arts. And when I meet him, we wind up standing there and talking for 2 hours in the middle of the convention hall. And there were, like, people walking up and listening to the conversation. And it was like a really, really good conversation. Then after that, I wind up, like, peeking in the next day to watch him teach a class. And in the class that he's teaching he's not teaching it how he acts online. Again, that is a character. So, like, when I watch him teach, like, online, he cusses up a storm. He's like, then, you lose the fight, then your wife, she fuck another dude because you lose fight, and you no longer, your penis gets small because your technique is terrible. Like, that's how he talks online. When he's teaching a class, he is, like, teaching a class. Teaching an actual class. And, like, some of the interesting little details that we can pick out and point it and make fun of after the fact, sometimes they're just minute that we pick apart because we are more experts at, like, the details. Think about a person who's never trained martial arts before, day one. Will this help them? Like, if somebody's close enough and you can shove your thumb into somebody's eyeball, would that actually hurt? Yes, that would fucking hurt. If you're a female who just got her nails done, it's even gonna hurt even worse because now you got this sharp, pointy jab at the end of your finger, right? So, like, I look at certain things, and if you put a camera on somebody long enough for a long enough period of time, you will see them say and do shit that you will not agree with.
Yeah.
That's just life. No one's going to agree 100%. And in the martial arts, where there is nothing but ego around us all the time, you're going to disagree with a whole bunch of people. But you're always going to pick the one person at the top to shoot down. So, like, if you look, right, and you start to, like, really, like, pay attention to how people are picking on who, right? They always like to pick on the top guy, right? But, like, what are the things that you respect and what are the things that you don't respect? You got to, like, really think about it. What is it that this person's doing well and what is it that this person's doing wrong? And if the wrong outweighs the good, then you have a problem. But if it's like 50-50 even, like, who fucking cares, right? Because he did this one thing you didn't fucking like, you're going to try to ruin somebody over. So, like, when I look at people like this, like, there's a responsibility that comes with having 500,000 people in the martial arts community follow you and listen to what you have to say. And I don't take that lightly. I could ruin someone's life and career. I could take food out of their children's mouths by me just saying one thing or posting something. And, like, people are like, oh, you don't have that. Yeah, it really does happen. I've had studios closed down, like, people who were pedophiles called out. Like, it's a job, and it's a job that I don't fuck around with. And so when I see people who just randomly rip people apart, I'm not just trying to rip people apart. I'm trying to keep the students safe. That's all I fucking care. So if they're doing something detrimental to a student, a real student, then they gotta fucking go. If they're just entertaining people, who fucking cares? That's just how I feel.
I'm glad you said that too, because there are people out there that would say potentially, oh, you know, like, he's doing detrimental harm to these people, regardless of whether these people deserve it or not. Because, you know, like you were saying, and like I've seen, pretty much everyone that you kind of rip on probably deserves it, and some way more than others, and some, you know, are just fucking assholes. But I really do believe that what you're doing is a service to the martial arts community and people in general, because, like we've been discussing, the pedophiles, the fucking con men, the people who are just thieves, those people deserve to be in jail or whatever in the first place. So they've really got no business, like, being around children, being, you know, able to, like, take money from people. That stuff is really the evil, like, no good stuff. And especially when they utilize, like, Jedi mind tricks or whatever to do it, it's just no good. So the fact that you guys are going out there and saying, screw that, let me freaking investigate them. Like, investigative journalism is basically what you're doing. And it is such a good thing to see. And not only is it entertaining, but it's also, like, it makes me personally feel, like, justified when you get someone good who deserves it. It's like, yes, that motherfucker deserved to get got, and he got got.
That dude from India that I posted Monday, that dude is a huge con man. Oh my God. I'd never seen somebody give themselves so many titles in my life. Like, it's like, and what kills me is, you know, the opposite of good is not evil. The opposite of good is indifference. It's good people seeing evil and doing nothing about it. And I think that the world is so full of evil, not because of evil people, but because of indifference. So many people who could give a fuck less about the other guy as long as their shit's running smooth. Who cares about everybody else? Well, let's put it to you in terms of this. Let's say martial arts, which is an all-encompassing word that encompasses judo, jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, sambo, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on, right? Those are all martial arts. Let's say we're all living in an apartment building, and each apartment has a different martial art in it, right? And then you know that the neighbor above you is beating the fuck out of his wife every night. You're aware of this information. You're aware that the guy upstairs is teaching utter bullshit to people. You know it. You know the guy across the hall is a pedophile. You fucking know it, right? You know the guy under you is trying to set the building on fire, but you don't do anything about it. You will burn in the building with them. So that's the equivalent of saying, I'll just worry about me. I'll just worry about us. I'll just worry about my students. We'll just do our thing, and we're gonna focus on just training, and we're not gonna worry about anybody else. Well, guess what, motherfucker? When the rest of these people burn the building down, you're burning with it. That's just how the shit goes. And so when I see people say that old school bullshit, I can't help but think to myself, that person is actually evil. That's real evil. They are aware that this is a problem, and they don't give a fuck that it's going on. They're aware that that dude over there is fucking kids and is no longer on a registry or not on a registry at all because he got a plea deal, but they don't care, right? Like the one I posted the other day, David Arnbeck, he took a plea deal, right? He molested a 15-year-old girl in his house, in his own home. He also had a previous sexual offense for prostitution, right? This isn't his first sexual offense. This is number 2 that I know of, or at least he got caught for. And now he still runs 3, not 1, but 3 martial arts studios in which he still has access to children. Now, whether or not he goes in there and teaches the children's classes, I don't fucking know. All I know is he has access to them. He should not be allowed that.
Yeah.
At the moment, he even went as far as to make a website called davidarnbeck.com in which he gives his side of the story. Okay, in your side of the story, you still tell me that you did take the plea deal. You still tell me that you pled guilty. And then you have the balls to say that the plea deal that you took is not an admission of guilt. Yes, the fuck it is. You pled guilty, right? And so you did that knowing that had you not done that, you could have potentially lost your family and the rights to your children. If that was the case, then have the respect to no longer be around children or allow children in your facility. Have the respect to go, hey, this situation happened. I'm sorry. We no longer teach children on these premises because of this. We'll still teach adults. We'll still do cardio kickboxing. We'll still do all these things. But I can no longer, as being a fucking respectable human being, have children around me because this moment happened. You know, and I do feel bad. If it was false, I feel fucking terrible for the dude. But at the same time, even if, don't have children in your facility because you did plead guilty. And so, who knows? There's only 2 people on this fucking planet that know the truth. That 15-year-old girl and him. But I know one thing that's a fact. He pled guilty. And what you just told me was you admitted guilt. And by that, you should also get rid of the fucking kids class. Just teach adults. Don't have access to children. That's a burden and a cross you're going to have to bear for the rest of your life. And that's something I will never let down. If I have to mention that shit for the next month until I fucking die, as long as he has a facility in which he's around children, I'll bring the shit up. I do it like eating popcorn sometimes. I'm like, you know what? I kind of feel like having popcorn. I'm like, you know what? I kind of feel like calling out that pedophile. Here you go. Here's the information again. You know, because like, to me, it's not about ethics. It's about transparency, right? I'm not the ethics police. I'm not here to tell you how to run your shit. But I know that we're pretty much all in the universal understanding that molesting kids is wrong, right? Most of the time, I don't think I've ever found anybody who's really like, no, it's cool. Nobody is cool with that shit except for fucking pedophiles, right? They even in prison. Here's how bad it is. In prison, you have to be separated from other people because if they find out, they will fucking kill you. That's like people who are hardened criminals. They have shit they won't put up with, right? And so, like, I just baffled by the fact that the martial arts community loves to turn a blind eye to so much bullshit because of politics. Oh, I know this guy, so I can't say anything, or that guy will get mad. Oh, well, I'm a studio, so if I say something, it'll make me look bad. Who fucking cares how you look? That's ego again creeping up. You do shit because you think that it's the right thing to do. You do shit because you feel like it's going to better people. You do shit because it's just what should be done. You know, like if somebody's fucking drowning, right? I don't pull them out of the water and go, hey man, could you do me a favor? Could you tell me a little bit about yourself? I just want to make sure you're worth saving. You don't do that. You fucking do it because it's the right thing to do. You see somebody molesting children, you don't go, well, you know, we're just going to worry about us and we're not going to worry about him and we'll make sure we're all copacetic. Fuck that. Sometimes there is fights worth picking, and I'll pick that fight every day.
Which really, I mean, what you're doing is going back to the whole kind of essence of martial arts in the first place. And when we look at, you know, ancient Japan, China, where a lot of these arts kind of started growing out from, was the whole Buddhism, Shintoism, this whole aspect of, you know, deaden the ego, rise above situations, better yourself, and, you know, help your fellow man, all that spiritual stuff. And you're bringing it more into the forefront of today's martial art, which is, hey, listen, we all got egos. We're all, you know, martial arts, badass guys, whatever. But can we at least try to dampen it down, make a conscious, like, thought to like say, hey, let's focus on training. Let's focus on bettering other people, bettering our students collectively, and leave all that BS behind and practice pure water, kind of like the essence of martial arts.
I mean, we're all going to die, right? I mean, we're all going to die. Like, what are you going to leave? You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's a question I ask myself every day. Like, it's a terrifying thought to me. Like, I only have really two fears. One's a phobia, but the other one's an actual fear. I'm scared of heights. Can't tell you why. Don't know when it happened. Somewhere in my adulthood, I was a kid. I was cool with it. When I got to be an adult, fucking terrified of heights. Don't know why. Can't tell you why. I'm sure some psychologist will have fun fucking around with that, right? But, like, the other is I'm terrified that I'm going to die and not leave the world a better place than I found it. That is a scary thought. Like, that's a real fear of mine. I'm really scared that my existence on this planet would have meant absolutely nada. I would have bettered no one. I would have advanced nothing. I would have helped nobody. And so that's a scary thought to me, is that fact that tomorrow I could die. Today I could die. I could die literally in 5 seconds from a brain aneurysm that I didn't know was going to happen right here on the show. What did you leave? You know? And like, as a martial artist, we have clear defined things that we leave behind. You know, like, for instance, if you're an engineer or you're an inventor, you leave behind a thing that you made, right? You made this thing that will be used forever. We still use the screw. Some dead guy invented the screw forever ago. We still use it. That dude is not dead. That dude is a legacy. That dude is immortal because of that. When we look at a martial artist, what we really leave behind is students. We leave behind students. When people say they love Bruce Lee, they're a student of his philosophy. They're listening to what he has to say, and they're soaking that in, and they're using it. They're students of his. Even if they never met the man, right? That doesn't mean you can't be a student and learn something from the teacher. Yeah. And so as martial artists, our obligation to this is to leave behind a student. Leave behind somebody who will push this forward down the road. What did you leave? And I think the best thing to ever invest in is people. You know, like, I look at homeless people, and not downing, everybody has their own reasons for having hard times in life, and some homeless people have mental handicaps and stuff like that. But when I look at a homeless person who is physically fit, who doesn't seem on the outside to have a drug problem, which they may or may not, I don't know, but they seem like they could physically do something. All I can think to myself is, how many people did you piss off to get to where you are today? Like, if I, for instance, like, lost everything tomorrow, I invested in enough people, and I didn't do it for this, but I can look back and be proud of the fact that I did. I invested in enough people where I will never be homeless. Like, people want to take care of me because I took care of them when I had the opportunity. And so I look and I think that if I keep a good head on my shoulders, if I keep working hard, if I fall into this downtime, or if I fall into a pit, then other people will help me because I helped them, right? But if I look around and there's nobody I can call and there's nobody I can answer, that's your own fucking fault. You put yourself there. And so as martial artists, we invest in people. That's what we are. We're investing in people. And now, you might not have taught somebody with cerebral palsy how to be the best MMA fighter in the world, but you may have gotten them to stop using the crutches and to walk on the mat. That is a story that actually did happen, right? You may not have gotten the guy with Down syndrome to be able to fucking be the best fist fighter on the planet, but you may have given him enough confidence to talk to a girl. You know, you might not have gotten the guy who has one arm to be the best boxer on the planet, but you may have gotten him enough confidence to get into shape that he's always wanted to be in, but he was just too scared to be out in a group because he was self-conscious about the deformity that he has. Like, our responsibility is the people. The art comes with it, but we use the art to help the people. And if you're using the art for anything other than that, you're just wasting it or abusing it.
Wow. Well put, man. I mean, you really have a grasp on this whole thing, and I appreciate what you're doing. Now, how can guys get in touch? Obviously, if they're living under a rock and they haven't heard of you, or they don't know your websites or whatever, man, I mean, is there somewhere where we can send these guys?
Yeah, of course, man. Anybody, I answer almost every direct message. I do my best. I get a lot, so forgive me if it takes me a few days, but I definitely will eventually get to it. It's Mcdojo-Life. You can find us on Facebook under the Mcdojo-Life, which I'm still trying to get my old one back. I had an issue. The page got taken down. I'm trying to get it back. You can check us out on YouTube, Mcdojo-Life, Twitter, Instagram. All of those are Mcdojo-Life. We're diversifying. We started a Twitch. So we're playing video games with guys who are like martial artists, and we're just shooting the shit as we play video games. It's really fun. We'll do way more of that coming up here soon. You can check us out. We're relaunching apparel, so we're changing our apparel line completely 100% around to represent what the brand is supposed to be about. Instead of it being just kind of campy or funny, we're trying to make it a little bit more something that people would actually wear, not just myself. Also, we have Mcdojo Show, which you can check that out on our YouTube channel every Friday. We have different martial artists come in. We interview them. We just had Big Lon from High Rollers, BJJ, which is fascinating because they you roll for weed. So, like, you smoke weed before you roll. You do the tournament while you're high. And then if you win the tournament, you get to win a bag of weed. Fascinating. The dude's awesome. That was a great one. And we have Angie Hill, MMA fighter for the UFC. She'll be on the show on Friday. So we're working real hard to diversify and to try to branch out. And, again, try to leave something a little better than when we found it.
Rob, I appreciate you coming on so much, man. It really does mean a lot that you're willing to, talk to guys who reach out to you and, help everyone that you possibly can. It means a lot.
Anytime, man, as much as I can.
So thanks again for coming on. Guys, I want you to remember, please, that you are your first and last line of defense. Do not mess around these days. It's some serious times we live in, and I will catch you on the next Tactical Podcast. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.